Okay, we'll start with this. Well, I'm sure that you've heard already, at least by now, that WBC confirms Dillian Whyte has taken legal action against the governing body over the date of the mandatory WBC title fight. The WBC have confirmed that Dillian Whyte has taken legal action against the governing body over the date of his mandatory WBC heavyweight title fight. Whyte defeated Oscar Rivas by unanimous decision in the WBC final eliminator last July to secure his mandatory shot at the WBC belt currently held by Tyson Fury, with the WBC president Mauricio Suleiman reiterating last month that the Brixton man would receive the world title fight by February 2021. WBC President Suleiman told Sky Sports there is a procedure with regards to the date of the mandatory in the heavyweight division. Upon direct advice of the WBC's legal counsel, I'm not in a position to discuss it any further. Fury's U.S. promoter, Bob Arum, revealed that he plans to hold talks with the WBC in a bid to delay or eliminate the Whyte fight, and the top-ranked boss suggested his fighter could even receive the status of WBC franchise champion, which would remove his mandatory titles commitments.
We will be talking to the organizations to eliminate mandatories or postpone them all for at least 1 year.
Matchroom boxing promoter Eddie Hearn has insisted that Whyte should still receive a monstrous fight against Fury early next year, with Joshua battling the winner in the summer of 2021. The point of Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua and the teams agreeing to the structure of that deal can happen. That first fight can happen at the end of next summer, Hearn told Sky Sports. It will be 2021, but there is a big period of time where Dillian Whyte should be getting his shot at the world title, and that's important to us. Oh, Dillian's had enough. He's had enough of the WBC playing with his time, playing with his career, and he's not going to wait around. He's not going to sit on his hands. He's going to take the bull by the horns, and he's going to do what he can to make sure that he's given what he is owed.
A title shot.
At this point, what other course of action is there? The WBC, left to their own devices, has made Dillian Whyte wait close to 1,000 days, what would be over 1,000 days by the time February rolls around of next year.
2021.
Over 1,000 days for a title shot that he should have been getting at some point this year.
Shit is criminal.
In a sport like boxing, where most anything can happen on any given night, especially in the heavyweight division, it's criminal to dangle a guy's title shot in front of him like this. Make him wait a year, even though he's already the interim champion. I was of the opinion, and still am, that if the WBC chose to wait till February 21 to grant Dillian his title shot, it's because they were helping Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury to a degree. They wanted to keep those two guys' schedules clear so that they could have their engagements in spite of owing Dillian Whyte a title shot. They assisted in keeping both of those fighters' schedules clear for what was to be their trilogy. It wasn't a secret that these two guys might end up fighting 3 times. Ahead of the second fight, it was already being reported that there could be a third.
WBC knew that.
The WBC, in their fashion, appears to have assisted in that effort by ensuring that the trilogy between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury would come off without interruptions, without obstructions.
From anyone.
Without anyone getting in the way.
Even if it's a guy who's owed a title shot.
And you'll excuse me for saying so, but it's not the WBC's job to ensure that particular fight happens. It's not their job to ensure that both Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury's schedules are clear so that they can have as many engagements with each other as they want, as they would like. That's not the WBC's job.
You don't fucking work for them.
You're not either of those two guys' managers. You're not either of those two guys' promoters. It's not your fucking job to ensure that those guys get to fight 2 and 3 and 4 or however many fucking times. That's not your fucking job.
Dillian's had enough of that shit.
It's been almost a fucking year since that Oscar Rivas fight. It will have been a year from the date, next month, that Dillian was crowned interim champion for having defeated Oscar Rivas in an eliminator that you guys ordered. And your plan was to make Dillian Whyte not just wait a year, but well over a year for his title shot. Why is that? I'll tell you something. If it would have been that the WBC champion, whoever the fuck it turned out to be, would have had 12 months from the date. That's 12 months from July of 2019. If it would have been that the winner of that fight would have had 12 months from that date to satisfy the mandatory challenger, Dillian Whyte, I don't think there's a whole lot that people could have said about it.
If it were just 12 months.
And that's in spite of everything the WBC had done already before July of 2019. in spite of all of that, had the ruling been that, they've got a year from July 2019 to satisfy their mandatory challenger, whichever one of them ended up holding the title, I don't think it would have looked as bad. But the fact that the WBC themselves put well over a year's time in between the time Dillian Whyte fought Oscar Rivas and the time he's supposed to be getting his title shot, the fact they did this, it's quite suspicious, and certain inferences can be made as to why they would have done this in the first place. What purpose does this serve?
He beat the fucking guy in July 20th of last year.
And he's got to wait well over a year after July 20th of 2019 in order to get a title shot.
Over a year?
Even though you guys should have fucking gave him a title shot already, if we're being honest.
He's got to wait over a year.
Why didn't the WBC just say that whoever wins Wilder versus Fury 2 must thereby satisfy the mandatory challenger thereafter in their very next fight? Why didn't they say that? Is it because they knew that there would be a trilogy? Is it because they were assisting them in having that trilogy uninterrupted? Is it because they were hoping that Dillian Whyte's UCAD fiasco would go sideways?
Was that it?
Because they were hoping that in between that time, someone would take his spot, take him out, at any point between July of 2019 and February of 2021. Is that what they were shooting for?
Looks like it.
If it is, that is highly unethical. It's the WBC's job, and the job of any sanctioning body, any one of these four organizations, to give the sport structure and ensure that the contenders climbing their ranks are afforded the world title opportunities they work towards. That's their job.
That is their function.
That is the purpose that they serve. That's the whole fucking point of having a sanctioning body, to give the sport its pecking order, to give the sport its structure. And the WBC has done anything but that.
Exactly.
Because you tell me, how many fucking WBC eliminators has Tyson Fury fought in? How many? How many eliminators did he fight in ahead of the first fight or ahead of the second fight? How many? How many eliminators did he fight in to where Deontay Wilder was actually ordered to give him a rematch and Dillian Whyte was ordered to fight him?
Did y'all forget?
Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury as a voluntary. That was a voluntary title defense. Tyson Fury didn't have to fight in any eliminators to get that first fight. And the first fight was scored a draw.
That's fine.
But that was a voluntary title defense. Tyson Fury, unlike Dillian Whyte, he didn't have to fight in any eliminators, WBC eliminators, to get that first fight. So where do you get that you should order Deontay Wilder to fight him in a rematch? If you were going to order Deontay Wilder to fight anybody after that first Tyson Fury fight, it should have been Dillian Whyte, your number one contender, your number one ranked challenger.
That's what you should have did.
But what they do in January of 2019, the beginning of the year, they ordered Deontay Wilder to fight Tyson Fury for a second time. And when that fizzled out, they ordered him to fight Dominic Breazeale. But that time was ranked behind, well behind, Dillian Whyte.
What kind of fucking structure is that?
Doesn't even make sense. Dillian Whyte's ranked the number one contender in your rank standings. Why would you order Wilder to fight somebody other than him? Why would you order Wilder to fight somebody that's ranked behind him? This is just what I mean. WBC's job, like any other organization's job, like any other sanctioning body's job in the sport of boxing, their function is to give the sport its structure, to give it its pecking order. And that's not what the WBC's been doing. I've said that about a million fucking times.
Not at heavyweight.
And so, Dillian Whyte has decided to take action. I can't say I didn't see this coming. I did.
Told you this is what it was going to come to.
At a time when the WBC champion himself is dismissing his obligations as a champion, satisfying his mandatory challenger, at a time when that champion's promoter is blowing off his own fighter's responsibilities and saying that he's going to petition the WBC to stall, delay all mandatory challenges for another year. What the fuck were you expecting Dillian Whyte to do in this situation?
Cry in the bathtub?
Write the WBC an angry letter?
This was expected.
I can hardly blame him. I think that what Dillian Whyte is doing here is doubling down, ensuring that the WBC follows through on their word. We know what happens when a champion does not abide by a direct order from a sanctioning body. If Tyson Fury does not satisfy his mandatory challenger in February of 2021, regardless of why, he must surrender the title. And if between then and now you shoot for franchise status, we'll know why you did it. We'll know that you did it so that you wouldn't have to fight me.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
And don't give me the I don't need a belt because I'm the one who beat Deontay Wilder. I'm the real champion. Don't give me that crap because Deontay Wilder's another one who didn't want to fight me. With you, that That makes 2.
Both of yous.
Nah, you're not going to get to play this one the way you've been playing up that lineal championship crap. You're not going to do that with this, because in order for you to be the WBC champion,
The real one.
you got to be in possession of a WBC title. And if you throw it in the air and shoot for franchise, well, that's what you're not. You won't have a version of the WBC title that anyone can fight for. You won't have a version of the title that will be on the line in every contest you have thereafter. I'll be in possession of that title, which makes me the real WBC champion. You have effectively abdicated that throne. And for anybody who would classify Dillian Whyte as a paper champion thereafter, an email champion like what they've been doing to Devin Haney. Hey, just remember, it's not like Dillian Whyte didn't try to fight these guys. He tried to fight the both of them. He tried to fight Deontay Wilder, he tried to fight Tyson Fury. And it was those guys who didn't want to deal with him. So that's hardly cause to call him a paper champion. In that situation, if Dillian Whyte ends up in possession of the full-fledged WBC title, the version of the title that can be unified with that of another organization, he will have done so by forcing the reigning champion to give it up. Oh, I know. You only recognize champions that become champions in combat. Well, what happens when the champion doesn't want to engage in combat? What happens then? You want to say that you only recognize the transfer as a result of a contest and not the bureaucracy, the politics of boxing. That's the sentiment some people might shoot for. But title can't be transferred if the champion won't fight. And this champion, Tyson Fury, he doesn't seem to want to fight Dillian Whyte. So what do you recommend? Per a tweet from Michael Benson, Bob Arum has suggested that Dillian Whyte and Alexander Usyk fight each other next year to solidify one genuine contender for the Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua winner. Whyte is the WBC's mandatory for Fury, and Usyk is the WBO's mandatory for Joshua. And in truth, that's not a bad idea.
It really isn't.
It'd be a great fucking idea if this situation with Dillian Whyte wouldn't have turned out to be a full-blown clusterfuck if he hadn't been sitting at number 1 for well over a year, 2 going on 3 years. It'd be a fantastic fucking idea if it weren't for these extenuating circumstances. But here today, that suggestion is a day late and $1 short. And neither Dillian Whyte or Alexander Usyk plan on stepping aside. They want their title shots.
Both of them.
Respective of each other. So even if that is a pretty good suggestion, a pretty good idea, the both of these two guys, they're not going for that. You know what they want. And that's why Dillian Whyte has lawyered up. He has every intention of holding the WBC to their own words, which for them, at times, is asking a bit much.
They're gonna have to this time.
The only thing that stands in Dillian Whyte's way, becoming the next WBC heavyweight champion, is Alexander Povetkin. Lest we forget, Dillian Whyte is supposed to be fighting that guy, and he's got to make it through that guy in order to see this situation with the WBC through. He has to win that fight. There's no two ways around it. Dillian Whyte loses that Alexander Povetkin fight, and everything that he's worked towards the last 2-3 years all goes right down the fucking toilet. Right down the fucking drain. Now there's even more riding on this fight.
It's not a foregone conclusion that Dillian wins.
It never was. Look, Alexander Povetkin's been a top 10 fighter for years now. Comes from an Olympic amateur background, a gold medalist, and he's fought a proverbial who's who of guys over the years. He's won some fights, he's lost some fights, but better still, he's formidable enough, even here today in his late 30s, that it's not a foregone conclusion that Dillian wins. In that way, the same things that people love about Dillian Whyte as a fighter are the same things that could cost him as a fighter. He doesn't shy away from a challenge.
Not afraid to lay it all on the line.
And that's what he's essentially doing against Alexander Povetkin. Whatever headway, whatever progress he's made over the years, however close he's inching towards getting his hands on that green belt, it could all be dashed in one fell swoop from one big left hook by way of Alexander Povetkin. He's got to tread carefully. He's got to win that fight. I've said this before and I'll say it again. When it comes to the strategy that I think Dillian Whyte will employ against a mid-range to inside hooker, the likes of an Alexander Povetkin, I think we're going to see something very similar to what we saw in the Oscar Rivas fight. Neither Oscar Rivas or Alexander Povetkin are the most statuesque of heavyweights in today's heavyweight division of lumbering lummoxes. These guys are on the smaller, stumpier end of the spectrum. Dillian Whyte will approach this fight with a bit of a height advantage and a bit of a reach advantage. And I think he's going to employ that reach, employ that wingspan, and fight behind his jab the way he did with Oscar Ribas.
Keep the smaller guy out.
As it doesn't benefit Dillian Whyte's aspirations at all to engage Alexander Povetkin mid-range to inside in the pocket. That's exactly where Povetkin wants this fight to be fought. That's where he wants to be. So your aim has to be to keep him out of there. Keep him out of there in those early rounds. Keep him out of there long enough that this fight drags on and Alexander's age begins to catch up with him. Mid to late. Strategy has to be a blend of being economic, being judicious with the left hand, whilst at the same time asserting himself as to not allow Alexander to take over. You gotta show him who you are. You gotta put some punches out there, because if you don't, he will. He's got to assert himself. That's what he's got to do. But he's got to be balanced in his approach to where, yes, you're in this fight and you are asserting yourself, but you're not putting so much out there that you're giving this guy openings. You're giving this guy opportunities, throw something back at you. It's a delicate situation, and there really is a lot riding on this fight. There is, especially for Dillian Whyte.